Hi everyone, I hope you are all well. It's been nearly 2 weeks since my last video. I am back at work following my holiday off the Cheltenham Literature Festival, and I've just been having usual routine back in order, but I've also been reading, where is it? There it is, A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness, which is what I'm here to talk about. I actually finished this because today is Friday. I started it exactly a week ago and I finished it on Tuesday. But I also wanted to watch the TV series before I filmed this review, which is what I've been doing over the past couple of days. So this is why you're getting this review today. Because quite frankly, throughout 2020, it's been really difficult to actually watch adaptations of the books that I have been reviewing, and I'm like, oh, I'll get round to it, and I just haven't gone round to it. So it could, COVID doesn't help. Gaining access to those adaptations sometimes has been really hard, and also I just haven't had time because I've been busy doing other things, even though I haven't been going anywhere, but you know what I mean, stuff around the house, other activities, that kind of thing. So I absolutely wanted to make sure that I did so this time. So I'm going to be talking about the book, and I'm also going to be talking about the Sky TV series. So first of all, let's talk about the book. Now, in case you don't know, A Discovery of Witches is the first book of a trilogy written by the fabulous Deborah Harkness, and it's from, I think, 2011. And I literally went into this book knowing witch is the main character, there's a vampire, and it's set in Oxford, modern day Oxford. That's it. So I had no clue what the heck I was going into. The basic premise is that there is a witch who is a historian called Diana Bishop, who is living and working in Oxford. She's really respected in the academic world. She's published books. She knows a lot about alchemy. Alchemy is her key kind of area. And one day she's at the fabulous Bodleian Library in Oxford. I went there for the J.R. Tolkien exhibit. If you see my video where I blubbered at the end about that's where that was. And yes, so one day she's at the Bodleian Library and she's doing some research for a talk that she's doing. And in the process of doing that research, she gets a book. She's asked for a book, she gets it. And she doesn't like to use her magic. She's always had issues with using her magic since she's young, which you find out why throughout the course of this book. And she uses her magic to open this book because it for some reason it's kind of sticking, as it were. She can't get the book properly open, so she uses a bit of magic to open the book. Little does she know that is going to have massive consequences, and a vampire called Matthew Claremont comes into her life that very same day and discovers that they both discover various things about that book and the impact it has on them, their type of creature that they are, as it were, because there are witches, demons, and vampires, and obviously the impact on demons. And suddenly Diana becomes the key focus of all of these different creatures in Oxford, and they basically have to figure out what is going on, why she's the focus, and more importantly, why was she able to open that book. So that's your premise. So as I said, I went into it knowing there's a vampire, there's a witch, it's set in modern day Oxford. And that was it. And oh my God, I have fallen head over heels in love with this. Like, I haven't felt like hit to the point where these characters are going to live in my heart and soul since on this channel I had read probably his Dark Materials. I honestly feel like I cannot allow this to leave my bookcase. whatsoever. I was just feeling every possible feeling under the sun. I mean, this book is 688 pages, and I got through, because I started it, as I said, last Friday. Over the Saturday and Sunday, I got through 300 and some pages of that in the course of those 2 days. I was just like, I was in the zone. I was just devouring this story. And then Tuesday, I was a mess by the end of it. The final chapter had me absolutely crying my eyes out. I couldn't believe what I had gone through. And I actually had a moment where my sister, as you will have seen on this channel, my absolutely wonderful sister, hi Laura, by the way, I'm sure you're watching this, did the most amazing thing ever. And I totally freaked out and cried over this. As you know, in 2020, I was not allowed to buy myself a book for a year. I gave myself a 1 book leeway because at the point in January it was no indication if this book was going to be published, but it did get published, and so I gave myself that 1 book as the leeway. So I couldn't buy a book for the rest of the year, and I desperately wanted the rest of the book. So I, for the first time ever in my life I could think of, I contacted my sister, and I was like, please, like begging, almost like I can see that, you know, on my knees going, please, for the love of God, buy me the last 2 books of this trilogy for Christmas, because I desperately need to. I cannot wait until 2021 to carry on this story. So that happened on Sunday. It was either Saturday or Sunday. I was saying that. I think it might have been Sunday. And then she was like, okay, let's see what Santa brings. Monday afternoon, there was a knock on my door. There was a parcel which I hadn't ordered, and I had no clue what it was, where it came from. My sister went and bought me the rest of the trilogy and posted it to me, and I was freaking the hell out. I was going crazy, guys, and I think that can tell you how big an impact this had on me. So I have the 2nd and the 3rd book now, so thank you Laura again for being the most amazing sister ever. You know, it's, oh, I just love her to bits. She's wonderful. So I will be reading the rest of the trilogy before the end of this year, and I will give my thoughts on that. So when it comes to the actual book, the way it's constructed and such, I have to say, straight up, I thought Deborah did an absolutely wonderful, stellar job of what I'm just about to say, in that she is an academic. She knows the world of academia so well. And so sometimes it can be that when you're in that academic mindset, that the way in which you describe things or write things, should I say, is from a more academic approach. And you could argue that sometimes things that are said, language that is used, it's only suited to those who are more academic. Not in the case of this book. Deborah has written it so that anyone can pick up this book and can totally understand the world of academia, the processes that you go through, the way that you do research, even the way that, because she lives in, that our main character, Diana, she lives in rooms that are from Oxford University. So even like dealing with the porter who looks, the guards for the building that you work in, you live in, stuff like that, what you can expect from the rooms that you're given, what you can expect from the library, the process of how you take out books, the cushions and the lamps, the special lamps that are used within the library so that it doesn't damage the books at all, because these are hundreds and hundreds of years old, these books, all those kinds of things. It was so natural. She didn't have to force explanation. She just told you basically what the realistic things that you will see, which you will hear, which you will smell, which, lighting, all stuff like that, locations. that you will be in contact with if you go into academia in these various fields and doing this kind of research. And that was fantastic. I totally understood exactly what she meant, and the locations are stunning. I mean, as you know, if you know my channel, I've been to Oxford twice over the past couple of years, and I adore it. And when she referred to the short walk from the Bodleian to Blackwell's bookshop, which is absolutely stunning, that bookshop, I was like, yeah, I know exactly. It's literally across the road. And when she talks about the weaving paths and such like that, I could see it totally in my mind. I knew exactly what she was talking about. And to have that connection is wonderful. And talking about the botanical gardens, and Diana loves to go running, and she rows as well to, deal with her frustration. She goes rowing on the rivers, and it was just absolutely wonderful to have this very immersive yet very real world, and to show academia without it being dry and boring and over described, and using a language that is more known in the academic world. She just wrote it wonderfully. What I also really appreciate, that for this kind of genre of, kind of supernatural-esque stuff, that we have a protagonist who is smart, in her 30s, who is still, learning about the world, just as we're all learning about the world. But the fact that, because it tends to be that for this particular genre, you have very young protagonists, and all the emotions are at such a height that you constantly kind of feel a bit on edge. And sometimes, like Cassandra Clare's books, which I really enjoy. I really love her world and how she builds it. But you've got to admit that sometimes the teen angst and the whole love stuff can just be a little too much, and you want to bring it down and go, look, girl, you've got bigger stuff to deal with right now. Be adult about this whole situation. And in this book, we have an adult. All the conversations are very adult, and she doesn't allow anyone to talk over her and stuff. She's really bold, but it's really funny because with her magic, she can do these crazy big things without even thinking. But the moment she does magic, when she's thinking, she can't do things like light a candle. She's so bold and strong, and I loved how natural this development of her relationship, Diana's relationship with Matthew. Matthew's the vampire, obviously, and Diana is the witch of the story. It is so realistic, and it's done in realistic timing as well. It takes time to get to know each other. It takes time to take certain steps in a relationship, and Deborah just did an absolutely beautiful job of showing these two extremely different characters, telling all of their past and present, and what I gather in the next two books, the future events. And I'm so excited. I'm so on board for the ride. It's going to be absolutely amazing to read the next two books. Now, I want to do a quick reading because we're already 15 minutes in and I haven't done a reading, to give you an idea about this book. Now, the way that this book is written, as in perspectives, is slightly different in that the majority of it is first-person perspective from Diana. But in the chapters where we are following Matthew specifically, it then turns to third person because Diana is not around. So you do have this sort of flip back and forth. But what I'm going to read to you is actually one of Diana's chapters, so it'll be from first person. And this is After she's opened the book and she's met Matthew, she's gone rowing, and she is just, stopped rowing, and there he is, just waiting for her at the boathouse, and she's a little startled. So here we go. Are you and your friends stalking me? Claremont frowned. They aren't my friends, Dr. Bishop. No? I haven't seen so many vampires, witches, and demons in one place since my aunts dragged me to a pagan summer festival when I was 13. If they're not friends, why are they always hanging around you? I wiped the back of my hand across my forehead and pushed the damp hair away from my face. Good God, the vampire muttered incredulously. The rumours are true. What rumours? I said impatiently. You think these things want to spend time with me? Claremont's voice dripped with contempt and something that sounded like a surprise. Unbelievable. I worked my fleece pullover up above my shoulders and yanked it off. Claremont's eyes flickered to my collarbone, over my bare arms and down to my fingertips. I felt uncharacteristically naked in my familiar rowing clothes. Yes, I snapped. I lived in Oxford. I visit every year. The only thing that's been different this time is you. Since you showed up last night, I've been pushed out of my seat in the library, stared at by strange vampires and demons, and threatened by unfamiliar witches. Claremont's arms rose slightly, as if he was going to take me by the shoulders and shake me. Though I was by no means short at just 5'7", he was so tall that my neck had to bend sharply so I could make eye contact. Acutely aware of his size and strength relative to my own, I stepped back and crossed my arms, calling upon my professional persona to steel their nerves. They're not interested in me, Dr. Bishop. They're interested in you. Why? What could they possibly want from me? Do you really not know why every demon, witch, and vampire south of the Midlands is following you? There was a note of disbelief in his voice, and the vampire's expression suggested that he was seeing me for the first time. No, I said, my eyes on two men enjoying their afternoon pint at a nearby table. Thankfully, they were absorbed in their own conversation. I've done nothing in Oxford except read old manuscripts, row on a river, prepare for my conference, and keep to myself. It's all I've ever done here. There's no reason for any creature to pay that kind of attention to me. Think, Diana. Claremont's voice was intense. A ripple of something that wasn't fear passed across my skin when he said my first name. What have you been reading? His eyelids dropped over his strange eyes, but not before I'd seen their avid expression. My aunt had warned me that Matthew Claremont wanted something, and they were right. He fixed his old grey-rimmed black eyes on me once more. They're following you because they believe that you found something that's been lost for many years. They want it back, and they think that you can get it for them, he said reluctantly. I thought about the manuscripts I consulted over the past few days, and my heart sank. There was only one likely candidate for all this attention. If they're not your friends, how do you know what they want? I hear things, Dr. Bishop. I have very good hearing, he said patiently, reverting to his characteristic formality. I'm also fairly observant. At a concert on Sunday evening, two witches were talking about an American, a fellow witch who found a book at the Bodleian Library that had been given up for lost. Since then, I've noticed many new faces in Oxford, and they make me uneasy. It's Mabon. That explains why the witches are in Oxford. I tried to match his patient tone, though he hasn't answered my last question. Smiling sardonically, Claremont shook his head. No, it's not the aqueducts. It's the manuscript. What do you know about Ashmole 782? I asked quietly. Less than you do, said Claremont, his eyes narrowing to slits. It made him look even more like a large, lethal beast. I've never seen it. You've held it in your hands. Where is it now, Dr. Bishop? You weren't so foolish as to leave it in your room. I was angst. You think I stole it? From the Bodleian? How dare you suggest such a thing? You didn't have it Monday night, you said, and it wasn't on your desk today either. You are observant, I said sharply. If you could see all that from where you were sitting, I returned it on Friday, if you must know. It occurred to me blatantly that he might have rifled through my things on my desk. What's so special about a manuscript that you'd snoop through a colleague's work? He winced slightly, but his triumph at catching me doing something so inappropriate was blunted by a twinge of fear that this vampire was following me as closely as he obviously was. Simple curiosity, he said, baring his teeth. Sarah had not misled me. Vampires don't have fangs. I hope you don't expect me to believe that. I don't care what you believe, Dr. Bishop, but you should be on your guard. These creatures are serious, and when they come to understand what an unusual witch you are... Claremont shook his head. What do you mean? All the blood drained from my head, leaving me dizzy. It's uncommon these days for a witch to have so much potential. Claremont's voice dropped to a purr that vibrated in the back of his throat. Not everyone can see it, yet, but I can. You shimmer with it when you concentrate, when you're angry too. I mean, surely the demons in the library will sense it soon if they haven't already. I appreciate the warning, but I don't need your help. I prepared to stalk away, but his hand shot out and grabbed my upper arm, stopping me in my tracks. Don't be too sure of that. Be careful, please. Claremont hesitated, his face shaken out of its perfect lines as he wrestled with something. Especially if you see that wizard again. I stared fixedly at the hand on my arm. Claremont released me. His lids dropped, shuttering his eyes. My row back to the boathouse was slow and steady, but the repetitive movements weren't able to carry away my lingering confusion and unease. Every now and again there was a grey blur on the towpath, but nothing else caught my attention except for people cycling home from work and a very ordinary human walking his dog. After returning the equipment and locking the boathouse, I set off down the towpath at a measured jog. Matthew Claremont was standing across the river in front of the university boathouse. I began to run, and when I looked back over my shoulder, he was gone. So there we go. So that is the kind of kick-off point where Diana realises that there is something up here. And it's absolutely fabulous. I loved it. All the characters are just so wonderful. All of Matthew's family, and especially Diana's family. Her aunts, Sarah and Em, are just the most wonderful characters. I especially love Sarah. And there was something to do with Sarah at the end of the book, which just sent me in absolute floods of tears. And I'm so glad that Deborah wrote that. It was absolutely wonderful. It is a stunning read, a fabulous pace, a great story, so immersive, so enchanting, so wonderful. I could not tell what was going to happen on the next page. I never anticipate. You know, sometimes you get that with books where you go, oh, I know what's going to happen, and you figure something out. I never had that in this book. And honest to God, I think this was the perfect time for this book to fall into my lap. I know I've had it in my bookcase for 2 years, but you know what I mean? That sometimes you find a book that just hits you perfectly in the perfect moment where you feel it's time to read that book. I think that's why I do that. I buy books and then they sit on my bookshelf because at the time I buy them, I want to read them, but it's not the appropriate moment for me to. Now was the appropriate moment for Discovery Witches, and I adored every single second of it. So that's my thoughts on the book. Now, when it comes to the TV series, I went into this again completely blank. I waited until after I read the book, and then I literally the next day I started watching TV series, but I didn't watch any trailers at all. I didn't search for anything, nothing. And I knew the two lead actors, Matthew Good and Teresa Palmer. I knew how their faces from a picture that I'd seen previously, because I actually bought the first series on Blu-ray for my sister, I think for her birthday last year. But yeah, so I remembered the picture from the cover, couldn't tell you anything else, didn't look up anything else, so I had no idea. My God, the casting was so good, especially I want to give a, heads up to Alex Kingston as Aunt Sarah. I loved her as Aunt Sarah. She was just, yes, perfect. There were a couple of cast members where I was like, I didn't imagine them when I was reading the book, but they did absolutely fantastic jobs. So for acting wise, the way they depicted the character, full marks. I just didn't anticipate that they would be the person cast in that role. And what I especially love was that it is shot in Oxford. And I was like, oh, I've sat in that pub. Oh, I've been there. Oh, yeah, I know that. It was so amazing to have that, and the fact I went kind of crazy because there was two pub scenes in particular. One with the characters Matthew, Miriam, and Marcus, and another one with Sean and Diana. And I have sat in those seats in that pub, and I was like, oh my God, I know exactly the camera angle, I know exactly where they are in the layout of the pub. I have sat there, and that was like, oh my God, it just gave me chill. I loved that, and they have shot it beautifully. They've told the story really, really well. Now there's certain aspects where they didn't go as in depth in the book, or they didn't quite they did cover it, but they only did like a small element because it was appropriate at the time, but you didn't need to know a big chunk about, whereas the book obviously delves much further. But even though they did that, I was totally happy with everything that they did. The way they told the story, the way that they constructed the episodes, the use of music is so good in this series. I am so excited for series 2, and especially I need to give a shout out to Matthew Good and Teresa Palmer, who are perfect. They are Matthew and Diana. Especially Teresa, she does an absolutely stellar job playing Diana. Literally, apart from her being ever so slightly smaller than Diana, she is Diana. You cannot. I couldn't fathom how she could completely be this character, but she was absolutely amazing, and their chemistry together is wonderful. You can tell how they really they are such good friends. They really support each other. They are there for each other through everything, and it's just wonderful to watch. So I am so excited now for January when the second series comes out based on the second book. So I'm making sure I'm going to read the second and third book before then. So I'm very excited. So there we go. So those are my thoughts on A Discovery of Witches by Deborah Harkness. Now, of course, I need to ask my usual questions that I ask. So would I read this book again? Of course I'm going to read this book again. What do you think after this review? This is not going to be leaving my bookshelves for a while. I think this is going to have to squeeze because I've actually run out of room on my bookcase of book series that I cannot give away because I love it. I love it so much. Would I recommend this to anyone? Yes. And I say, especially like I mentioned before, don't be daunted the fact that it's set in an academic world, because the way Deborah has written it, you don't need to worry about that kind of stuff. Everything is explained in such a great manner, and it's so natural and it's so wonderful. Would I read any more of her books? Well, I haven't bought, should I say, my sister has bought. I am going to be reading the second and third book, and from what I understand, there is a fourth book, which is actually a spin-off from one of the secondary characters, as it were, in this. Exploring his story further. So I may look into that as well, but I want to finish the trilogy first. So yeah, thank you so much, Deborah, for writing this, and it just hit me at the perfect time, and I'm so excited going forward, reading the next books and watching the second series in January. I'm so glad I got Sky, because that means, because it's Sky Original, I get to watch it whenever I want and I don't have to worry about it. But I am going to buy it on Blu-ray anyway. But yeah, those are my thoughts. Have you read this book? I'd love to know what you think. Leave me a comment in the comments box below. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, entirely to you. I'll let you decide. I'll also put a link to the series trailer as well in the description. And the next book I'm reading is We See Everything by William Sutcliffe. But this is actually a really short book, so it might well be, guys, that you might have another review this weekend. Let's see how quick I get through We See Everything. And I'll see you guys when I've finished that book. All right then, bye.